Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Washed Up Wednesdays. As always, I'm your host, Jordan Lowry. Back to the original setup. Got the camera fixed, got the mic fixed. We're on a great level right now. If this is your first time to the show, basically what we do here is we talk strictly about the NFL. We go through all the games, the players, the trades, anything of the sort that's happened. It's getting a lot crazier in the postseason / off-season phase of things. There's a lot to go over this week. Couple of things. A lot of guys committing for the draft. Tua committed to the draft. Jake Fromm, Okuda, from Ohio State. A lot of big-name players are committing to the draft, and I think next year is going to be even more stacked, but this is going to be one of the best drafts we've seen in a while. Just want to preface that before we get there. Going to start going over the draft as soon as the NFL season ends after the Super Bowl. So we got a lot of off-season coverage for you there. But let's get into some news before we get into games. A lot of head coaches are being hired. The Cowboys hired Mike McCarthy, and they just said today that Kellen Moore is going to stick around at the OC. I think that's a great decision to let him learn under Mike McCarthy. McCarthy is a lot more of an offensive-minded head coach. I thought he was awesome when he was at the Green Bay up until last year. Definitely a lot of mixed feelings with how that ended, but I think this is a fresh start bringing him to the Cowboys. Jerry Jones is especially excited. He said that he is very thrilled to have him there because he's someone that coached a huge franchise in the NFL, someone that had great success, brought them a Super Bowl while he was there, and he thinks that Mike McCarthy with Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and everyone else on that high-powered offense is going to give them an edge to get into the Super Bowl in the next couple of years. So I think Mike McCarthy is a perfect fit. I think just with the schematics that they have, they ran a very similar offense to what McCarthy ran in Green Bay, so he's not going to have to change a lot. And also, he turned his house into a football-watching house, and not just watching games, literally getting clips and watching every single view from there. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that little technical difficulty. That should be all set for now. But getting back into Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys, I just think it's a perfect fit. He turned his house into a football watching home where it's legit film from the bird's eye view. It's not what we see on the broadcast. So he's getting all 22 players on the field at the same time in the film, and he's getting it from a bunch of different angles too. So, and he's watched, according to him, he's watched every play from every game and knows what every player did. And he can really gauge what's going on the field at all times, and he did that for a full year. So props to Mike McCarthy putting in the work, even though he wasn't a head coach last year. He was still acting like he was. Good job. Joe Judge, the former Patriots wide receivers and special teams coach, got hired by the Giants. A lot of people are questioning this move, more so that the past wide receivers didn't do good this year, and now everyone's like, well, why are you hiring a wide receivers coach? I'm going to tell you why. Patriots have had the number one special teams for years. Ever since Joe Judge has taken over and implemented his system, they've been top three, if not the best special teams unit in the NFL. Special teams is a third of the game. Of course, I'm biased on that, but I am going to say that it's a big third of the game. Just why you would have a head coach who's an offensive coordinator, he's coaching a third of the game. So either way, any head coach is going to be coaching some third of the game at some point in their career. So I think Joe Judge is a very smart hire, and I think Patriots wide receivers have done very well, especially with getting into position and in space before this season when they had guys who could get separation. This year, their biggest issue, guys didn't know the playbook and guys weren't getting separation. So that's that. Joe Judge, great hire for the Giants. Going to be a loss for the Patriots, but they're going to figure stuff out. We'll talk more about the Pats later. Matt Rule, the former Baylor head coach, just got picked up by the Panthers on a huge deal, 7 years, $62 million over that span, and I believe there's a lot of really good incentives there as well. I think this is a great fit. He brings kind of a new school coacher into the Carolina offense. I don't know what he's going to do with Cam Newton. I don't know if he's going to keep him or get rid of him. Matt Rule is one of the younger coaches in the league at 44 years old. Yeah, 44 is young for an NFL coach. Let that sink in. So thought it was a great pickup by the Panthers. Let's see how that pans out. We're going to go over the games in detail. Normally, I would just pick what I thought were the best games, what were the worst games. We're getting to that point in the year where we can't really do that. There's only 4 games. So we're actually going to go through the details of the games. I'm sure you guys all watch the games at home, but I want to bring out some pointers that I thought were great. The Bills and Texans, first and foremost, great game overall. Awesome comeback by the Texans. Bills had it on the ropes. Bad call by the refs, which is why I'm wearing the shirt. Again, I'm going to get into that with the kickoff in the end zone. He didn't take a knee. He did do this as sort of a safe call to say, hey, no return, but that's not a fair catch. In the rule book, that's supposed to be a fumble, and it should have been a touchdown for the Bills to end the half. But obviously that wasn't the case. Unfortunately, that is what happened, and unfortunately, it might have cost the Bills a game. Also cost them the game that the defense and offense couldn't finish the game when they had multiple opportunities too. But either way, great game by the Texans. Deshaun Watson looked like he looks like an MVP type player right now. Not that he has the stats to back up an MVP season, but what we saw on the field, he absolutely crushed it. The Bills, again, a big missed opportunity. Devin Singletary was your best offensive player that whole game, and he didn't touch the ball once in overtime. I think that's a huge red flag going forward. I hope he gets a lot more touches the second season because he had a very underrated rookie season for how he was using that offense. He did a great job. Also, J.J. Watt, 52 snaps after coming back off a torn pec. Normally, torn pecs take guys out of the whole season if they get injured during the preseason. There's guys that don't come back even if their team makes the Super Bowl. J.J. Watt came back in a little over 2 months. So props to J.J. Watt, absolute freak. He had a great game. It's going to be interesting to see how he plays going forward, maybe even get some more snaps. He did only have 1 tackle and a sack, but he was getting to the backfield on a good amount of plays as well. So let's just keep that in mind there too. Getting to the next game, the Titans and the Pats. Pats looked hot right off the bat. Their offense went down and scored right away, but then again, so did the Titans. Patrick Chung left the game early with an injury, which was a huge shock to the Patriots defense. That wasn't good for them. Logan Ryan, big revenge game. Could have had a pick 6 early in the game, dropped it, slipped right through his hands, but then he got his redemption at the end of the game. Pats on their own 1-yard line. Brady's trying to hit a hook, maybe get some laterals going, and he bite. And I forget who the safety. It might have been Kenny Vaccaro who bit on the ball, and it popped back up into Logan Ryan's hands, and he took it to the house. Might be wrong that it was Kenny Vaccaro, but I know it was the safety cranking down on the ball. Great job by the Titans getting that win. Derrick Henry ran all over the stud Pats defense. 184 yards on the ground. I think he had like 20 yards through the air as well. Did a really good job. Brady finishes his season with his 3rd worst overall grade according to PFF of a 79. It's his worst grade since 2011. So a tough look for the Patriots. Exiting the wild card that early is a very rare thing for them to happen, and their future is uncertain. I'll talk about Tom Brady a little bit later. I just want to get through the games. The other game, obviously the next game, Saints and Vikings. We all know how this went down. This was a crazy game. Drew Brees finally looks human. He didn't look like anything he looked like earlier this year. Saints came into the game with only 8 turnovers on the season. That was an NFL record, and they had 2 in this game. 1 big pick by Anthony Harris, who had a very underrated year. He was awesome. He's the free safety for the Vikings. He played great. Taysom Hill had a historic day. He's the first player in NFL history to have 50 receiving yards, 50 rushing yards, 50 passing, 50 rushing, and 25 passing yards, all in the same NFL playoff game. Great job for him. The push-off at the end, at first I was like, they got to call that. It's a playoff game. This is dictating someone's season. It's right at the end of it. You got to give it a call, and they did not call it. The DB was holding a little bit, which forced the push off, but if the DB sold it a little more, he might have gotten the call, but they didn't even bring it up to the booth to review it. It blows my mind that they didn't. The Saints game last year was literally the reason why those plays get reviewed, and you have a play that's somewhat similar to what happened there, and it doesn't get called, and it doesn't even get reviewed. So I'm indifferent on it. If I was the ref, I would have thrown a flag on that. The push off was egregious. They were both hand fighting, which you want to let happen. But a push off in the end zone at the end of the game in a playoff game where a season ends, I don't think was the right call. I think that's a bad judgment call by the refs in the game there. But getting to the game overall, Dalvin Cook looked great after having a couple of weeks rest. Looked really sharp. Danielle Hunter in the backfield almost every play. Stopped Kamara in his tracks multiple times. Sacked Drew Brees. Made Ryan Ramczyk look like a rookie out there. He did a great job, Danielle Hunter. And Kirk Cousins threw the ball better than ever before. He had a lot of great third down conversions. 3 of them he was getting hit and was able to sidearm it or just get it over the defender for a great pass. Even though his stats don't show it, he balled out and had a great game. Good job, Kirk Cousins. Last game I want to talk about, Seahawks and Eagles. The Clowney hit was pretty bad. Again, another bad ref call. That's 3 so far that I've seen. There were actually 2 awful calls also on Derek Barnett, which I'll get into a little bit later. Josh McCown left it all on the field, by the way. He did a great job filling in for Carson Wentz, had a great game, but just didn't put it together. Took a lot of sacks that he probably could have gotten rid of the ball, but, he hasn't played all year, and he was retired for a whole year before that. So, tough day in the off. Well, he wasn't retired. He was backing up Sam Darnold for the whole entire year. So, tough day if you're Josh McCown. He did great. Beast mode, even though he only had 7 yards on 6 carries, he did score a great touchdown where he ran through a couple guys, spun off another. And he got his touchdown. So great job, Marshawn Lynch. I think that's going to be great for them going forward. The Seahawks defense, they were 28th in sacks this year, and they finished with 7th on the game. You can say all you want. Yep, it's more of the Eagles' offensive line being battered. The Seahawks actually have had more injuries than any other team in the NFL. And I'm not just talking players injured as a quantity. I'm talking about how many games were missed. It was 285. The next closest is 271. A lot of games missed for the Seahawks, and they've made it work. They're missing their top 3 running backs for the rest of the year. Their top 2 tight ends are done for the year. 2 injuries on their offensive line. I'm going to have to fix this again. Give me a second. We'll see if that works. I'm going to see if that holds. But anyways, Seahawks have been playing very well with a lot of guys injured. Half their secondary has been hurt, and they're really turning it around. And then I have to talk about DK Metcalf. He had such an awesome game. This is what we've wanted to see from him since the start of the year. He's had these types of games throughout the season, wasn't consistent with it, but now in his first playoff game, proving all the doubters wrong, having a big touchdown catch, got up and ran after the catch too after he fell to the ground, didn't get touched and scored, and then perfectly high-pointed the ball to end the game and seal the deal for the Seahawks and send them to the divisional round. Great job, DK Metcalf. I want to note some players here. They're not my peekers and leakers. We're going to get into this peekers and leakers right after. But there are a couple of guys I do want to point out. J.J. Watt, one of them. Great job coming off the pec injury. Not a whole lot of guys, especially defensive line players, would not be able to do what he did. Coming in, stuffing the run, filling in gaps that were normally open against the Texans' run defense. Great job, J.J. Watt, just playing lights out there. I talked about him a lot. Next guy I want to talk about is Tom Brady. There's a lot of speculation that Brady is not coming back to the Pats. There's a lot of speculation that he is going to go to the Chargers. He might go down to Miami. He might go to Carolina. There's a lot of different places that he could be going. He sold his house. He opted out of his contract. His personal trainer sold his house. Giselle is completely on board with him moving and not only retiring, but just getting out of New England. There's a lot of red flags around it. He did make a post today saying that he is coming back. He did not specify that he was coming back to Foxborough in New England. He said, thank you a bunch of times throughout the text. And then he said, everyone experiences failure, whether it's life or whether it's in sports. The main gist of the point is that you need to get back into the arena and you need to go and win. And that's exactly what he's going to do. That's what he said in his Instagram post. That doesn't mean that he's coming back to the Pats. He just means he's coming back to football. It'd be great if he came back with the Pats. They gave him 2 really good receivers. They opened up some cap space, and they let it ride and let him get done what he needs to get done. If the Pats aren't willing to do that, I think he either retires or he goes to Los Angeles, which I think would be a great pick with him on the Chargers. I don't think they're going to bring Phillip Rivers back, especially after the year he had. Chargers were in a lot of games, and he made a lot of mistakes that brought them to 5-11, basically. Not blaming it entirely on Phillip Rivers, but this is a seasoned quarterback with the game on the line, and he's in position to make a play, and he failed to time and time again this year. But getting back into Tom Brady, that could be a great option because Chargers already have all the weapons. 2 awesome running backs, a solid O-line, a great tight end, 2 solid receivers. Travis Benjamin's going to be healthy, assuming they bring him back on contract. And that defense they can ball. Melvin Ingram plays great. Joey Bosa. Maybe fill up those D tackle spots a little bit. Jerry Tillery is going to be full speed, so that'll be great for them. I don't know, man. I think the Chargers would be the best fit for him. Derwin James is going to be fully healthy. Desmond King, one of the best corners in the league. Also, Casey Hayward had a spectacular season. Nasir Adderley is going to be back. They have not Sean Phillips. They have, why can't I think of the guy's name? It's the DB, Adrian Phillips. Come back. He can be a box safety or he can play high. So they have a lot of different options in Los Angeles for the Chargers. And I think going into a new stadium, you bring in Brady, you bring a household name, that's going to bring a lot of fans down to the Charger games. A lot more than what they're seeing right now. So we'll see what Tom Brady does. I think Chargers is the right move for him. I would like him to stay in New England, but I just don't think they're going to give him the players that he wants because they're going to want to bulk up that defense, and they have a lot of free agents they're going to have to take care of this year. So I don't think this would be the season for Brady to get it done. I think in 2 years the Patriots would be set, but I don't even think he'll play that long. So we'll see what happens with Tom Brady. He did say he is coming back, so people will be excited for that. I want to talk about Drew Brees. His contract is up. Actually, Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Brees, and Taysom Hill, all their contracts are up. He did not play great this past week. That was one of his worst games he's had in a long time. He looked pretty rattled. Yes, the Vikings defense, their front seven is incredible. They couldn't hold back even with the best left tackle and right tackle duo in the league with Teron Armstead and Ryan Ramczyk. He just looked lost. He barely got Michael Thomas the ball. Yes, he targeted him 8 times, but that's less than all the receptions he got this year, averaging per game. So that was tough to see. Alvin Kamara barely got involved, couldn't get running a whole lot, and Brees didn't even pass it to him a whole lot. So it'll be, again, another interesting thing to see with Drew Brees. He hasn't been able to perform in playoffs when they needed him to. Yes, they've been screwed over by 2 calls the past 2 seasons, but even before that, trying to get them into the playoffs, he didn't have the talent he has now. But he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and you missed playoffs for 4 years straight. You got to make something happen. And now that you're in playoffs and you went to the divisional round, to the NFC Championship, and you're like, wow, this is their Super Bowl ticket. You fall short because of how you perform. Just not a good look for Drew Brees. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Last guy I want to talk about is Cody Barton. Not a whole lot of guys know who he is. He plays linebacker for the Seahawks. He backed up Michael Kendricks, and he filled in perfectly to the Sam spot while he was out. Had a lot of great fills on runs. He had a sack. He had a couple of TFLs. He had a couple of pass deflections. He played very well filling in. He did get thrown into some nickel sets. Not all. KJ Wright is pretty much their main nickel corner to go alongside with Bobby Wagner. But for what he could play, Cody Barton had a stellar game. He did really well, shutting down Miles Sanders, taking away the crossing routes over the middle, and tackling guys short. Zach Ertz also played very well considering his whole kidney's messed up and he's got some rib cracks. So good job overall for all the backups on the Seahawks. And even Dallas Goedert had a great game too. But Cody Barton especially, he did a great job. Let's get into everyone's favorite segment, Peekers and Leakers. For people that are new to the show, Peekers basically are the guys who are performing great throughout the week, who I don't normally talk about. Leakers are the guys who normally perform very well, and they have a piss poor performance. So getting into it, honorable mention number 1, got to give it to DK Metcalf. 7 catches for 160 yards and 1 touchdown. and the two big plays I talked about earlier. Number 3, I got Kirk Cousins, 19 for 31, 242 yards, 1 touchdown, a 96.4 QBR. He's actually the first quarterback on the peaker side of the list to have a less than 100 quarterback rating. So good job, Kirk Cousins. 2 carries for -1, and he converted 7 for 9 third down passes. They did a great job converting against the Saints. Number 2, Logan Ryan, 6 tackles. He had a half tackle for a loss, a big pass deflection, which almost could have been a pick 6, but then he gets a pick 6 to seal the game in a big revenge game against the Patriots. Shouldn't have let him go. Imagine having Stephon Gilmore, Jason McCourty, J.C. Jackson, Jonathan Jones, and Logan Ryan all in the same defense. That'd be crazy. I don't think they pick up Jason McCourty if that's the case, but that's just my opinion. Having those 5 would be absolutely sick. And that was another thing for the Pats. Maybe not having Jason McCourty over the past couple weeks has hurt them. We'll see more about that. But number 1 peaker this week, how about Deshaun Watson? What a game. 20 for 25, 247 yards. He had a touchdown for 121.1 QBR, 14 for 55 on the ground, and a touchdown there. He had an awesome game, especially the pass to Taiwan Jones to seal the deal. Took a sack from his left side, but they got bumped from the right corner on a blitz. Rolled back out the other way, came around, delivered an absolute dart to Taiwan Jones. Great job by Deshaun Watson. Getting to the leaguers for this week, honorable mention is going to be Marshawn Lattimore. He's only this low because he was hurt for most of the game. He had 4 tackles, got beat by Thielen and Diggs a couple of times, and he played the second half hurt. Would have been higher, but I think he would have performed better if it wasn't for that injury. That's why he's here. Number 3, Derek Barnett, talked about him earlier. He had 3 tackles and 2 QB hits, which sounds good, but he had 3 big penalties. One was a soft call. He gave a little shove to Russell Wilson. Wasn't really his fault, but he had 2 other penalties, a neutral zone infraction, and I believe he had another hands to the face penalty. All 3 resulted in first downs for the Seahawks, which is not a good look, especially for a guy you think is going to be your edge rusher of the future. Number 2, I'm going to split it between 2 guys, Kevin Johnson and Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White had 5 tackles, but he missed a tackle on Taiwan Jones at the end of the game. He got beat by Hopkins and Stills multiple times. Same thing for Kevin Johnson. Are you kidding me? Every 10 minutes this thing goes off. Give me one more second, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, there we go. I'll make sure that's fixed for the next time we go live. I'm going to get a new SD card. We'll get that plugged in. We'll get the camera all situated away. But with that being said, Kevin Johnson and Trey White just did not have a good game. Kevin Johnson struggles with out routes, and you saw it a lot in this game, especially when Kenny Stills was running the route. They didn't have Will Fuller. Texans look dangerous going into the next game with possibly having Will Fuller back against the Chiefs. So we'll see what happens. But my number 1 leaker this week, Terrence Brooks, the backup safety for the Pats. He's been plugged into situations, and he's performed absolutely baller this year. This game, he didn't. He allowed a tackle, he made only 1 tackle. He allowed a touchdown to Ferkser in the end zone, which basically gave the Titans the edge early on. But he filled the box quick enough on those outside zone plays when he was in the box. Derrick Henry was able to hit gaps a lot faster than he normally has because he failed to fill as quick as he could. Missed a couple of zone assignments, allowed a couple of out routes on him in man against tight ends. So Terrence Brooks definitely did not have the game that he normally has, and it cost the Patriots big time in that game. So tough to beat Terrence Brooks this week. Let's get into the game picks. We're going to wrap up the episode a little bit early, I guess, unless there's any news that came through my phone, which there hasn't been. So let's wrap it up here with the game picks. 49ers playing the Vikings. 49ers escape. I'm saying escape for a reason with the victory. This is 2 hard-nosed defenses going at it. Kyle Shanahan is a great offensive line, but Mike Zimmer is an awesome defensive-minded coach. This is going to be a battle for the ages. I think it's going to come down strictly to defense and a Dan Bailey missed field goal for the 49ers to win 19-17. Next one's going to be shootout Ravens versus the Titans. Going to be a great game all around. The Ravens have not seen a player like Derrick Henry yet. I think he's going to have a great game running the ball. but I don't think it's going to be enough, especially after Ryan Tannehill just came off an 8 for 15 passing day. I think he's going to have to pass a lot more, and I don't know, after having a week like he just had where he didn't pass a lot, how he'll respond having a big passing week the following week. So that's going to give it to the Ravens 35-28. This is a game I'm on the fence about. I've been flip-flopping every day as soon as I saw the schedule come out. On my sheet, I have the Chiefs beating the Texans, and I think the Chiefs are red hot in the second half of the season. But with the fact that Will Fuller is looking to play on Sunday, I'm going to give it to the Texans 21-20. Texans over the Chiefs. It's going to be another big shocker. Texans get into the AFC Championship game. Looks like they're going to play the Ravens. That's going to be a very fun game to watch. Two of the best young quarterbacks going at it. Either way, you're going to have two of the best young quarterbacks going at it, whether it's Deshaun Watson against Lamar or Patrick Mahomes against Lamar. Titans do have a shot, though, so let's not leave them out. Then the last game, Seahawks going into Green Bay. Seahawks, since Russell Wilson's been there, 0-3 in Green Bay, but they are 8-1 on the road this year, and I think they beat Aaron Rodgers in that Packers defense. They win 24-16. Look for another big day from DK Metcalf. All the games are close in the wildcard round. That's one of the best wildcard rounds we've seen in a long time. And the divisional round is going to be nothing short of that. I think the divisional round is going to be absolutely incredible as well. Looks like we're going to end a little bit early tonight. Next week, I know I've been kind of putting it off, but next week I am looking to move to a full podcast streaming service, whether that's through iTunes or some free website or whatever. We're still going to be back on YouTube, but as soon as the live stream ends, that's going to start uploading to the podcast, whatever the app I use, whether it's the iTunes app or I go through some other app through there. But we are going to expand the podcast. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I just haven't had the means to sit down and actually go through and check it out. It's something I'm going to look into tomorrow. So if anyone has any suggestions, feel free to message me on Instagram, send me a message on here, message on Facebook. Most of you guys have all my contact info. So definitely reach out to me with some comments. Quinn and Law, I know you sent me a couple things when I first started the show. Definitely going to look into that more in depth now that I have the time. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in for another episode of Washed Up Wednesdays. Next week is going to be wild, going over divisional games and then championship previews. Maybe some crazier things will happen. Maybe we'll know the future of Tom Brady. We'll know if the Cleveland Browns are going to have a good head coach or not. Hopefully Josh McDaniels goes there, and then maybe Brady goes there and they trade Baker to the Pats. That would be crazy if they did that. That's a hot take right there if I've ever heard one. But again, thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Going to try and be back here. We might have to push Wednesdays back a little bit more towards the 7:30 time like we got going tonight. But we are back in the full swing of things, back in a big routine. So keep tuning in, share this around, tell your friends about it, trying to grow this as much as possible. Every like and every share counts. I know that sounds cliche. Oh, subscribe, hit the bell, get the notifications. But I'm serious. That stuff actually does help. So please share this with your friends. Get it on Facebook. Share this on Instagram. Send the link to your brother, to your mom, to your dad, to your sister, to your aunt, to your uncle. I don't care who you send it to. Just get me the views. That means a lot to me. But as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Jordan Lauby. Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen.